Let's move to this story. Big story, this, of course. The government consulting on the drink driving limit for England and Wales. This story never fully goes. There's always a discussion about it from time to time. It's been many, many years since they've fundamentally changed the law. And, of course, this would mean reducing it so that it reduces road deaths. That's the theory behind it. However, there is much more to this story. Let's firstly get a word from Edmund King, president of the AA. Edmund, good afternoon to you. It is a kind of story, as I mentioned there. You know, when you say it out loud, should we reduce drink drive limits to save road deaths, then it's like a no-brainer, right? Well, of course we should. But there is more to this story.
Yeah, indeed there is, Ian. I mean, firstly, drink is an issue in 17% of road deaths, and for drivers, 20% of those killed, drink is an issue. So it is an issue. Yeah. But the thing about limits is interesting, because in Scotland, they reduced the limit to 50 from 80 in about 2014, so about more than 10 years ago. And actually, the evidence in terms of road safety is pretty inconsistent. It doesn't look to have made a massive difference there in Scotland, which is interesting. Other European countries do show reductions in death by about 10%, 12%. So there are other studies. I mean, I guess lowering it from 80 to 50, we are a bit of an outlier. If you look at the rest of Europe, most of Europe has a 50 limit. Northern Ireland was going to look to change to 50 anyway. Scotland, as we say, has already changed. I think the problem with the 80 limit, Ian, if I'm honest about it, is some people drink to the limit, and that is so dangerous, because you don't know how strong is that beer, how big is that wine glass. And it's all about alcohol, but it's also about metabolic rates, and your mood can even affect how you ingest alcohol. So we always say at the AA, look, if you're going to drive, don't drink. If you're going to drink, don't drive. And obviously that is the safest thing. And in Scotland, it's interesting, the kind of argument, has it affected the pubs? Well, pubs have done other things. They put on low alcohol drinks that have got much, much better in the last 5 years.
Yeah, true.
They've kind of promoted designated driver. So maybe the guy or the lady that decides to drive, they get free non-alcoholic drinks. They could do that, or put on taxis and other things. So I think, you know, overall, we'll look at the consultation, we'll look at all the questions, but I think overall moving to 50 does seem to make sense.
Is there anywhere around the world, to your knowledge, Edmund, I want to spring this one on you, that has a zero tolerance where you can't drink at all?
The problem with zero, and why most countries don't, is that you do get alcohol in some other things. There are some fermented fruit juices, for example, that would have alcoholic traces. And also, if you had had a glass of wine or something the night before, there still might be traces. So that's why normally they put a limit. The lowest normally is 20 milligrams. And that's something the government are also floating here for new drivers or learner drivers within 2 years. So you might actually have two limits. You might have a 20 limit for new drivers and then a 50 limit, you know, across the board. And I guess the rationale is new drivers are so experienced that any level of alcohol would have an adverse effect on them.
Indeed. Edmund, thank you for your time. Appreciate it as ever. Edmund King is the president of the AA. Thank you to him. I mentioned that it's not a straightforward debate, this, because there are issues, and it was touched on there by Edmund King. Michael Kill is the CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association. Michael, good afternoon to you. Nice to have you with us. Of course, nobody wants to see anybody dying as a result of getting drunk and then taken to a car, or hitting somebody while they're taking to a car. But there is another side to this, of course, and that is that people can drink responsibly, and the average person, you know, who goes out for a drink at the moment in a pub may drink nothing at all. They might have a pint, and for the rest of the night they drink Coca-Cola. That seems to be the pattern. I think for most rational people, it's certainly what I would do in those situations. Just give us, though, an inkling as to what the big concerns are in hospitality and the nighttime industry.
Well, thank you. And I kind of echo where Edmund is. I mean, look, everyone agrees that safety comes first, and no one in the nighttime economy wants to see lives lost because of drink driving. I mean, our sector has worked really hard over many years. We increasingly promote responsible drinking, designated driver schemes, alcohol-free options, which are now really a norm. And we've already seen sort of 25% of the market really consume low alcohol or no alcohol sort of drink options. So we're already shifting towards that sensible drinking, responsible drinking position. The challenge we have is that practical impact, that particularly for pubs and venues within rural or suburban areas, where things like public transport are very limited or simply doesn't exist late at night. And when we're telling people to either not to drive at all after a drink, and there's no viable alternative, and it either risks people staying at home or people making poor choices, which could cost lives. So there is a concern, and there is this really important thing that we need to achieve a level of balance, and we need to work towards creating a stronger transport infrastructure so that people have got that alternative to get home, particularly for those rural and suburban areas which are probably exposed in this instance.
I mean, as Edmund was saying, the variety of choice in pubs and bars now is huge. I've lost count of the amount of times I've gone out with a mate who voluntarily, even if they're not driving, has gone for a zero Guinness because they claim it's of all those non-alcoholic drinks that Guinness have got it absolutely pitch perfect. But that does seem to become a thing now, and people do it for all sorts of reasons, not just because of the driving thing. They just like it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are in a growing health-focused environment, particularly with youth culture, who are very conscious day to day on what they put into their bodies. Provenance is a really important thing. All of these things play a part in it. The key thing is arming the businesses around with the right infrastructure to support people getting home safely, but also making them aware of all of those options to ensure that the staff and management are fully behind these initiatives to sort of drive forward. It's like you say, we're not against this position. What we are concerned about is people making poor choices once we get to that point, if there are no available options, particularly in some of those environments where the transport infrastructure is just limited or non-existent. And in some cases, that's in towns and cities, sadly, at certain points in the evening.
Indeed. On that point, Michael, thank you very much to you. Michael Kill is the CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association. Over to you. Your overarching view, if you like, of the kind of idea of reducing how much you're allowed to drink before you get into a car. The zero limit doesn't quite work, and that's acknowledged pretty much around the planet. And if you've been nabbed and you got nicked and you weren't some reckless half-wit that just thought, I'll get absolutely K-lied and well, you might have been, by the way. I'm happy to hear from a reckless half-wit, always am. But it may just be, as we've heard from many people so far, that this was, the next day thing is often the way people get collared, still gets treated the same. If it reads you're over the limit, you might have had a night's sleep, you might have felt absolutely fine, you've had your breakfast, you've had a shower, you've even gone to collect your car from where you left it the night before because you didn't want to drink drive and still got nicked. What I'm interested in, which I often think are perhaps the best kind of examples of putting people off drink driving, are when you hear of people who've been through that and what it did to their life to lose their car, because you often lose your livelihood as well as losing your car. And of course, all that goes with it as well, you might lose a partner as well. I mean, you might be with someone who goes, I don't want to go out with a drink driver, and they leg it too. Everything's got. Thoughts on that?